Greetings, my name is John Maverick and I have a question for you. You're near the end of your 4-year degree. You've poured your heart and soul into it, countless late nights, sacrifices, hours of hard work, but now you're standing at a crossroads where you need to make a choice. Walk away from it all, everything you built up to this point, for the possibility of something better. Would you take it? Well, that's exactly what I did. I was pursuing a computer science degree, but haven't taken a semester in school or course in 2 years. I also left my promising software developer internship at a global 500 company. And essentially, I've abandoned this default life path you're supposed to take, the path of security and societal expectations, all to become a purple-haired VTuber online. All to feel a heavy weight of uncertainty by throwing away the past few years of my life by making this one decision. The decision I made on February 23, 2024. Now, you might be wondering how I managed to become so delusional. Do I even have a plan? Am I trying to speedrun filing bankruptcy? Chances are you're watching this video because similar thoughts are going through your mind, or you're in a similar situation. Hopefully, my story can help share another perspective on this. But to best understand where I'm coming from, we'll have to start at junior year of high school, where my passion for programming started. Now, to set things straight, you can probably tell already with me being a VTuber, but I was and still am chronically online. I was the epitome of an iPad kid since grade 2. During summers, I would spend up to 16 hours a day on my computer playing Minecraft with friends, and I have over 15,000 hours in video games. But fortunately, this addiction to this digital universe transferred over to my passion for computer science. In my first computer science class, I was pretty much the teacher, creating videos for every programming assignment we had to do. People were even waiting for me after school, messaging me to upload my videos and answers for them to copy. Use for help. In your life, it may not be programming, but the fulfillment and awe from exploring something new you're passionate about is intoxicating. It was fun learning the basics, like using variables and creating if statements. It was fun using my knowledge for teaching and helping other people with their homework. The problem solving and learning of new skills felt like a game where I was leveling up my skills of programming to be good enough to complete quests like creating a chess program. Obviously, there were obstacles along the way, like when I was stuck on bugs or had trouble understanding new concepts, but enjoying this process gave me a growth mindset that promoted resilience rather than giving up with a fixed mindset. And this is where I found the most joy in computer science. And this joy naturally led me to spend more time and effort into improving, to become good enough to take advanced courses so I could skip classes in university. Thanks to my good grades and effort, I got accepted into a decent university. I was ready to take the next step, to continue this fun journey of growth and eventually turn it into a living. But once I got into university, things started to change. Ironically, my schooling got into the way of my education. The specific topics I wanted to dive deeper into, like creating websites and user interface design, wouldn't be available until my 3rd and 4th years of school. And even then, there were only 2 courses about it specifically. Instead of just learning and applying what I learned in a fun setting like the projects I used to, I had to study for exams, doing everything I could to get the best grade possible for a good internship. And this was only part of the problem. I was just also naturally interested in a lot of other things. You see, I wanted to become a polymath. I wanted to be skilled and knowledgeable across all my various interests. Aside from programming, I was also interested in psychology, cognitive science, philosophy, productivity, learning, video games, esports, anime, making YouTube videos, writing, reading, entrepreneurship. The list just goes on. But unfortunately, school sets you up to be a cog in a machine, by majoring in a degree, an expert in one specific domain. Yes, I can take electives, but as much as I enjoy these topics, I don't want to spend $600 on a single class to learn something for fun if I could learn it online the way I actually wanted to for free. And even when I did take them, part of my passion was suppressed by the need to study for specific questions and exams. There was pressure to do well. So, once again, school got into the way of my education. I wanted to read books and other resources online to learn, but if I were to study enough to get good grades, then there's no way I would have had time for everything else. My curiosities and joy for learning felt smothered. I put in effort, but at times I just found it really hard to find motivation. And so my environment didn't support my inner drive. When my passion for learning began to fade, I realized something had to change. I took matters into my own hands by prioritizing my own self-learning path. I created and followed my own learning curriculum that included the programming topics I was actually interested in. Learning these skills then led me to create personal projects I was passionate about, like my personal website or a plugin to connect the two apps I used at the time. I began putting my skills to the test by attending hackathons, pulling all-nighters to complete a project within a few days. I mean, I didn't win any, but all these projects I now had under my belt were super helpful in building my portfolio and resume. Of course, I also did stuff outside of programming. I made time for reading books about the various topics I was interested in, like learning and productivity, and it was during this time where I began uploading more on my main YouTube channel as an outlet for sharing these ideas. But as a result, my GPA took a hit. I went from having a 4.07 GPA in my first semester, which was an A, all the way at the top, to a 3.36 in my second semester, which was a B+. But I found much more enjoyment during this time. Before, I would be an absolute perfectionist, prioritizing grades by spending boring and excessive hours on an assignment just for an extra 1%. But instead, I had motivation to only do a good enough job, only putting more effort in if I was genuinely interested in what I was learning and doing. Otherwise, I would have just much rather spent that time doing something I enjoyed. So I began questioning whether I even needed to go to school in the first place. And my answer for this came to me when I got my first internship. You see, I only took 2 semesters at school, which was only 9 classes in total. Do you know how many helped me get this job? 1. But that was just to pass the interview. I didn't use anything else I learned in my day-to-day work life. Instead, I stood out because beyond programming, I was working on these other things like my YouTube channel. In reality, everyone's going to be applying to jobs with the same courses they finished and degree. Also, showing something else that you enjoy and are working towards can help tremendously. At least that's what I learned from my experience. But anyways, now I was ahead of my peers and I found a job in the software field I genuinely enjoyed. So what went wrong? Good question. On paper, my job was amazing. At this point, I already finished 1 internship and have been working in the new one for a bit over a year. I went into office only 2 days a week. And when I did go, I was at the heart of downtown Vancouver, where I could go anywhere for quality food for my team lunches. I got to form really deep and meaningful connections with fellow interns there as we spent time after work or attending special events. The pay wasn't as high enough as a junior position, but it let me live a comfortable life with savings to spare. And more importantly, I was set up for career success. On my first day, I was assigned a big buddy on my team to help me adapt to this new environment. Throughout a year of his supervision and help, he told me near the end that I had the skills required to be hired in the company as a junior developer. And out of the other interns on my team, I was fortunately chosen to work on a big new exciting project because of my skills from self-learning. But at the same time, the fulfillment started to fade. When you're working at such a large company, it's hard to see the impact your efforts have. On a small scale, my manager was supportive and very encouraging of my work, but on a larger scale, I never got to feel the same level of influence the same way a YouTube comment would give me. I think the biggest thing that stood in the way of my fulfillment, though, was this one job interns had to do every 2 weeks. For 2 to 3 days, I had to spend the entire day just testing the website, following the same testing plans, just to make sure there weren't any bugs on the website. And my ADHD brain could not tolerate the repetitiveness, no matter how much music or YouTube videos I put into the background. Now, I always love video games because of the growth and autonomy I experienced in them. But instead, the stagnation from doing the same tasks over and over again just drained my energy for the rest of the day. Despite having good sleep, I felt abnormally tired and was forced to nap. I felt like I could be doing something more with my time. I didn't feel like I was on the path towards my ideal life. I mean, yes, I did learn a lot from working at a bigger company, and the mentorship was invaluable in becoming a better programmer. But once again, I'm just naturally a generalist. Having to fit into a box of a career that limits me to only focus on a few things scares me. And sure, I can learn all these things on my own, but you only have so much time after a full-time job. But with content creation, I'm in control of what I get to focus on. Now, if it were just me making this decision, I wouldn't have quit due to complacency and fear, even when I was making enough money with my YouTube channel to sustain myself. But fortunately, I had some positive influences to help me cross that threshold. First was my good friend Matthew, who was a leading example. He was an early role model since he quit his full-time developer job to focus on other projects he was interested in, like his own startup, a learning community, and now an e-commerce store with his girlfriend. He was always the one to get me to question and challenge my beliefs. When I shared that I was technically making enough to survive, he would just ask why I wouldn't just do it. Of course, there's much other factors at play, but financial insecurity was a huge reason for not wanting to. But seeing him still do so despite it began the start of my own valuing of it and the change of my own values to sacrifice security for growth and fulfillment. Another huge influence has been Dennis, a friend I met on an online community. We hadn't talked for a while, but when we caught up again around that time, his insight gave me the clarity and push to actually quit. So, with my doubts of financial security still lingering in my mind, I asked him if he feels fulfillment, even if he still isn't making enough for a living, and if he felt like he would be disappointed in himself if he didn't. But instead, he told me that he already felt like he had made it. By getting to work on his vision, he already feels fulfilled during the pursuit, not needing to postpone it. And it's so easy to focus on a future end goal or destination that we're willing to sacrifice our happiness throughout majority of the journey just to achieve it. But by finding and working on something you find intrinsically fulfilling, we don't have to wait for that time since it already exists. And this idea has been the biggest inspiration for introspection and creativity in my personal brand. I didn't want to go full-time as a creator to chase trends just to sell out and eventually do what I wanted to. I wanted to continue discovering what form of creative expression and personal understanding that most resonates with me. Yes, I do have a certain identity and strategy I can follow on my main channel for a secure path of success, but the point of making it my full-time job is to find something meaningful. And to find that, this requires me to embark on a pathless path, which is a term I've deeply resonated with when reading Paul Millard's book on it. And the following quotes still continue to be my shining light, my North Star during this journey. In it, he says, on the pathless path, the goal is not to find a job, make money, build a business, or achieve any other metric. It's to actively and consciously search for the work that you want to keep doing. While money is important on the pathless path, using it as a filter for finding the work worth doing, especially at first, is a mistake. More important is the realization that finding something worth doing indefinitely is more powerful and exciting than any type of security, comfort, stability, or respect a job might offer. Fighting for the opportunity to do this work is what matters, whether or not you make money from it in the short term. And for me, this definition of work felt much more in line with my values and pursuit of realizing my full potential. And with this new mindset and set of values, I quit. I gave my 2 weeks notice and shared this decision to my audience. I remember my heart rate being high constantly as I anticipated making this message public. And after that, I felt directionless since I was no longer following the default path. I felt responsible for my actions. This was until I found solace once again in my chronically online roots. Not to the extent of Serial Experiments Lane, where all she did was live in the wired, but looking back, I realized how crucial the internet has been in fulfilling who I am. It helped me overcome the limitations of my physical environment. It helped me nurture my curiosities through my self-guided learning plans, and it also helped me become the polymath I wanted to be. I like to think of the internet as an endless digital universe. We find ourselves in one part of it with the addictiveness and brain rot of social media today, so it's undoubtedly easy to see it as a distraction or an escape. But if we just zoom out, there's a much larger world out there, a world for us to explore in our own ways to create a journey of meaning. And just to make this clear, I made this choice to quit because my default path wasn't fulfilling enough for my desires. The goal of my story and brand isn't to convince you to quit school or leave your job, but to just reconnect with your curiosities and passions in a world that can easily detach you from it. I want to share how, with the right mindset and ideas, the internet can be used to help us achieve this, to help us get closer to who we truly are and want to be, not what society tells us to. Beyond self-help, we can begin a journey of self-actualization, where we work towards our unique and meaningful potential. Now, I've shared most of my learnings and experiences online during this journey of mine in my published notes at notes.johnmaverick.com. These thousands of raw notes and thoughts have been my personal sanctuary for staying true to myself, and I hope it can inspire something similar in you. And with the creation of this new second channel, I'm also thinking of streaming co-working sessions to encourage you to protect some time in your day for learning or doing what excites you. Just so you might not feel alone, I also have weekly updates sharing my progress, which you can subscribe to in my weekly Wonderings, a newsletter where I share the cool things and ideas throughout the week that I came across. Anyways, thank you for your presence. It would be super cool to also hear your story and hear how my experience may have given you food for thought. And if you want me to ramble or wander about any other ideas or experiences I've had, then just feel free to let me know. But anyways, this has been John Maverick. Stay mindful.